We are live.
Okay, thank you, Mike and LTV. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town of Easthampton Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for April 6th, 2021. Starting off, we have a canceled public hearing this evening. I'll let everyone know that the canceled hearing, the applicant is James Shannock, and the lot size and location is 1,600 square feet total at 301 Marine Boulevard Beach, Hampton, and Amagansett, tax map 300-177-1-42. That public hearing is canceled, okay? And we will be hearing that at a future date. So we will move on now to our scheduled public hearings this evening. We have two of those, two public hearings, and then just a little bit of business after that as well. So we'll start off, I'll read in the first public hearing this evening. The applicant is 92 South Euclid Avenue LLC, and that is the lot size and location here is 4,100 square feet at 92 South Euclid Avenue, Montauk, tax map number 300-49-1-15. The description is to allow 3 parking spaces located in the street right-of-way and to allow construction within the minimum side yard setbacks. The relief sought here is a variance from 255-11-40 parking requirements to allow 3 parking spaces in the right-of-way where parking is prohibited, and a variance from 255-11-10, Table 3 of the Town Code are required. A 7-foot variance is required to allow the building to be located 3 feet from the eastern lot line where 10 feet is required. This is in a CB, Central Business Zone, the zoning district, and the flood zone is X. The secret class is type 2. And counsel, good evening, Jameson. Thank you for being with us this evening. Good evening. And do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting, please, Jameson?
Hi, everyone. Yes, I have should be in the file. There is an affidavit of service and posting and mail receipts, and it appears everything is in order.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for pinch hitting for Nancy Lynn. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, so this, let's see, we have 2 Montauk board members, Ed or Terry, which one of you did it?
Yeah, I'm doing this one.
Okay, thanks, Terry.
And Marco has my photos.
Great. Oh, and before you start, I'll just like to welcome to the first time at the ZBA, Marco Wu is here from the planning department. Welcome, Marco. And it's nice to have you, and we'll see you around at other meetings as well. Go ahead, if you would, Terry.
Okay. Marco? Can you share my photos?
Yep. There we go.
Okay, he's getting there. All right. Okay, this was the official notice of posting. The sunrise was coming up, so blurred it a little bit. But okay, next. What I'm going to do is basically walk around the neighborhood, including the property. Right now, I'm standing at the eastern end of the property near the street. The fences, also the property boundary. You can see the marker for the property. It's 40 feet wide, and I'm looking east to west on this shot. And I'm going to next. Now I want to cross the street where there's some other businesses to get a kind of a more global view. You can see the tree, the posting is on a tree. There are a couple of mature trees in this area, and that is the property. The fence on the western end is the other side of the property line on the western. Next. This is a shot. I tried to get to this property when there were no cars parked, but that never happened. Now it's just a shot. I turn a little bit toward the northeasterly direction to the adjacent property to the east, and you can see that little property marker behind the gray car that's facing west, to give you another view of the property next door, where the adjacent to where the variance is being requested. Next. Now I turn to the southwesterly direction, and to give you a better feel for the neighborhood and what it looks like, and that Tudor-like the structure is the adjacent, well, not adjacent, I'm not sure if it's adjacent. There is an alleyway between that building and the applicant's property that we will hear about. What I was trying to point out here, trying to get a feel, there's a line of trees that look, mature trees, that look like they were originally planned to run up along the street. And I know with this project for the parking part of it, some trees are going to be sacrificed. I just want to point that out. And it looked like it was, you know, by design that these would come up the road. But next. Now went to the corner. I'm standing on the south side of the property and taking a view from the adjacent property for which there is an approved site plan, I believe, already. And just to get the view from that perspective down toward the applicant's property. It is going to be a two-story structure, so I was trying to get a feel for how that would look adjacent to that one, 3 feet from the property line. And next, I'm going to walk south. And now went to the area where it shows an alleyway, and there are going to be 4 parking spots on this end of the property. And I'm not exactly sure where they're going to be located on here. But I'm assuming, and the applicant can tell us, that the access to those parking spaces is going to be through this road here. Next, I'm going to walk down toward that direction, toward the west. Now I'm standing, I'm still in the alleyway, and these brick blocks over here are still part, not the applicant's property yet, still on the Beckman property, but just to get a closer view of what it looks like going through there. And next. Now I've gone to the other side of that, and I just turned north. This is actually a shot of going across the property itself. You see there is a lot of brush. There are a couple of trees, but basically that's it. Next. And now I just turned around to show on the other side, there's, this is not Martell's, this is maybe the back of, might be the gas station on 27. You can see there's some lawn and a residence. And next. Now I try to line myself up to the western property line of the applicant's property, and you could just see the view from south to north, and across the road is like Pete's Potting Shed. You see the store across there. Next. It's just a better view of it, including this other property. I don't know if this is someone's lot or if it's the other property, and the Nibby Montauk, which is the adjacent down on Euclid, and some more of the building across the street. You see there's another relatively new one there on the left with the pitched roof. Next. And now I just turned around and I'm shooting back up that alleyway to just give you a view from the west to the east of that. Next. It's kind of a repeat, just go next. And I walk farther down and just to get a closer view of them, still in the southern alleyway there, just to see, beyond that, which the town several years ago put in another parking lot down there. So beyond the Nibby Montauk and the buildings on the left, there's another public parking lot. Next. And now walked up toward the north, and this is just from the west property line, just a shot of the other store over there, Nibby Montauk. Next. And now I'm standing on Nibby Montauk's parking spaces, and just to show the view and the sidewalk, it's kind of a strange pink, but it's pink. And we're going toward the applicant's property where it's proposed to be the sidewalk and the parking spaces out in the town right away. Next. Okay, this was a sign actually, and I don't know if this is, well, I do know now, if this parking is also partly in the town right away, they had a reserved parking for Nibby Montauk only. And I believe that is not supposed to be like that. So I just wanted to make sure the new application that is not something that's going to happen if it's approved. Next. And then I just went around to the other side of the street, and you can see the Montauk Market, which is one of the southerly buildings beyond the applicant's property to the south. Also, you see nice line of trees going down. And next, there may be one more. This is just a better shot of getting Martell's, which was where that apartment, that residence was located. This is the other side of that building, and the burrito place next door to that. Next.
I believe that's all the photos I have.
Okay, that's it.
Great. Thank you, Terry and Marco. That was very thorough. Board members, any questions on the field report? Okay, seeing none. Do we have the applicant or the agent for the applicant here?
We do Andrew Strong for the applicant.
Hey, Andrew, good evening. Nice to see you virtually.
Yeah, likewise.
Go ahead, please. Okay, give us your address for the record too, please, Andrew.
Sure. Andrew Strong, Law, 5 Boatyard Road, Easthampton, New York, 11937. Does the board have an aerial photograph of this neighborhood, of this area?
Marco could probably pull that up.
That's been part of the planning board discussions, and I find it very helpful.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I have this aerial if this is okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So just very, very quickly, the applicant is working with a lot that's you can see is quite narrow to begin with. The entire lot, I believe, is 40 feet wide. And so they have been working with the planning board to try to put in a reasonably sized building, the updated alternative septic system to fit the parking on site so that they could come to this board and ask for the variance that they are asking for. The proposal is to put a structure that is 1,188 square feet. That's the size on the first floor, and above it is going to be a 2-bedroom apartment. The side yard setbacks requested are will need 7 feet. So the building will come to within 3 feet of the lot line on the east, and within 7 feet of the lot line to the west. And that was done to try to create a larger buffer between the westerly lot line, which was a smaller lot, so you didn't have such a wall of development. Whereas the narrower buffer is going to be on the easterly side, where you have a slightly larger lot. This is a commercial business district. If you zoom out just a little from this aerial that you're looking at, which I know you can't do because of the picture, but there we go. You can see the commercial business district just to the south is very similar in terms of how the buildings have been laid out close to each other. And I think, business districts throughout the town in every hamlet have that characteristic, because the idea is to promote walkability. That sidewalk, Terry, that you notice the color, I think the Montauk Business Association has recommended that for all projects. And I'm seeing more and more the planning board actually suggesting that you use that pinkish dye in the concrete. So that was,
Yeah, no, I actually like the pink sidewalks, but they usually look less bright.
Less vibrant.
Maybe that's time, I don't know.
All right. Well, we're following the planning board's recommendation on the sidewalk color. But overall, the submission here is that this is a modest building. It's not even 1,200 square feet. fits within the character of this neighborhood, which is zoned as commercial business. And so we submit that the side yard setbacks are reasonable. The parking, again, is identical to, if you can see just two lots to the, I guess, the west, the parking is going to line up along the street so that you have a coherent parking layout. And that was the thinking behind the parking on this lot. So with that said, I'll just pause there, and I'm happy to take any questions from the board.
Well,
Andrew, Tara, if I could just jump in quickly for one quick question. The building we see in the photo there, your neighbor, where you were mentioning the parking will match, that building looks like it has met the 10-foot setbacks. Do you know, is that correct? Just for a reference?
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, Marco probably would know.
Yeah, Marco might know. Anyway, I'll stop it with that. Terry, go ahead. I'm sorry, Terry.
What is the property in between those two? Is that a town strip that's there, or is that another privately owned?
I believe, I believe that's privately owned as well. It's vacant property at the moment.
All right. Now, Andrew, you mentioned you need a 3-foot setback variance from the west. So I didn't see that notice.
Mm-hmm. We've asked for a 7-foot setback. Yeah. So that we're not using the 7 feet on the west is only relevant in that it should be a better setback. So we've asked for 3 feet all around, but the plan is to create more of a buffer from the west.
Can I just add just one point? Terry was asking about that vacant lot in between the subject parcel and the developed one, which was approved under the name Kazura. That is owned by Martell's, which is the building to the immediate southeast on the other side of the alleyway. They also own that vacant lot, and they use it kind of as like a de facto parking lot / rear entrance to the Martell's building, just so you know.
Okay,
thank you, Eric.
I think we should, just for a point of order, I think we should swear Eric in.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'll swear Marco in too right away at the same time. Let's just do that. You're right. Thanks, Roy. Eric, you first. If you raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And Marco, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
I knew you would. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Andrew, or Terry.
All right. My other concern with the parking is those trees. Like I said, it looked like the trees were designed to line up, and then now these parking spaces have kind of taken over and the trees are being removed. Well, it's bothersome.
Yeah, I take that point, and I'm we're not trying to get rid of charming trees. I will say those trees they're in the roadway, and I think there is a tension between creating a uniform plan in a commercial business district and accessing this lot. So my understanding is that in areas that are zoned commercial business, you make every reasonable effort to accommodate things like that, but that the expectation is that there's going to be a commercial building there, and whether it's this one or the next one, I think that the site plan is constrained enough that it's very hard to see those trees fitting. I know that's maybe not the answer you're looking for, but that's I think that there's a certain reality to commercial business zones.
Well, with the town, I think you demonstrated that the spaces could fit on the site. So there is an option that I don't know if it's ever used, that you could pay for parking spaces in lieu of actually having them in the town right away or having the spaces. Did you entertain that or ask about that at all? Or
we didn't, but primarily because I think that's something that the boards have generally frowned on. I think that's always been a much heavier lift in my experience to come to the board and ask to eliminate parking in a business district. I'm sure the applicant would consider it strongly, but I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. I'm not sure. For instance, I think if I went to the planning board with that proposal, they would immediately say sorry, and maybe the planner can shed some light on that because Marco's been in both boards as well.
Yeah, but they didn't ask you to do that at all.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, I would just like to jump in for a minute, Terry, if I can.
Sure.
This is a good photo to see what's going on. If you start in the lower left here to the west, you'll see trees, 1, 2, they're stretched 30 feet apart. There's one missing where the new building went in. I'm assuming it came out and will allow for parking. Then there are 3 more that work their way out. There's a 4th tree, but it's not part of that. They were put in intentionally as part of a greening of this on the southern side of the road. And now that they went in some 30 years ago, they're all similar species, all a similar size. They're 22 or 24 feet in the air. They're spreading out and shading. It's part of the beautification project that went on in Montauk. And at this point, we're going to take this tree out where there might be a possibility to provide 2 parking spaces and still leave that on an island. I'm wondering if that could be discussed by the client, because although it seems like a minor issue looking at this photo, as you come down the way, you realize it was part of a bigger plan at a period of time. Now, 1 tree's already been removed, and I think it has something to do with us having a sort of respect for the long-term planning in this small community, in this business district. I'm not sure that we have to assume that because it's a business district, these shade trees that were planted with a certain intention have to go. So for me, I found that a particularly impressive point when I was standing there. Wait a minute, this is a very nice run of trees. It's going to add to the beauty of the area. Is there a way that we can move forward with a project like this without taking down this not very mature, but mature enough tree that is providing shade and changing the character of the area? So I think it is a point worth discussing, Andrew.
I mean, if I might jump.
Yeah, sure, go ahead, Roy, now.
Is that although these trees are, I agree with you, very important points, I'm not sure if they are pertinent to our application, as these are mostly planning board issues, right? If you look at this picture we're looking at, those trees are outside of the survey or the plot line, the blue line. I'm not sure if that's in the interest of the zoning board at this point. Although they're important points, I don't disagree with that. But
Roy, if I could jump in, Roy, I think we're.
They have to give a variance for it. They're asking for a variance to be.
For the parking, Roy. That's part of our.
I get that, and the points are salient points. I get that.
Yeah. So I'd like to just jump in for a second, if I may, Ed, just to follow up on yours as well. And to ask Eric something. I completely agree with what you said, Ed, and as well, it's nice, as you referenced, those peninsulas down the street here where they've accommodated this. And I think those are very important. I think the setbacks, the reason I mentioned the other building is I think the setbacks are important for the character of the neighborhood, the separation between these buildings, and as well, I think the trees fit right into that. And Andrew, I was looking at your survey. It looks like if you did conform, oh, sorry, that was a clock. That was our clock here. If you did conform to the 10-foot setback, yeah, we're out of time. Andrew, pardon me, if you did conform to the 10-foot side yard setback on the northeast side, you could possibly even fit a parking spot in there. And if you did conform, I'm just looking at the survey, if you went 7 times the 40, you'd be losing 280 square feet of your first floor. And I want to ask you that maybe Marco can pull up the plans at some point, what's on the second floor and how that conforming to the setback would affect what you've proposed for the second floor. Because I think these trees are very important. And I'd love to see if somehow we could give you 2 there, possibly 1 on the property and allow for a peninsula with a tree on it. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. I'll stop there.
Okay. Just to quickly answer your question, then I'll let Marco jump in. But We are on the second floor is an apartment, and one of the thoughts is to create a 2-bedroom apartment that's around 1,000 square feet, which I think is right about where we are. So we don't want to pinch either the store or the apartment to conform to the side yard setbacks would create a 20-foot structure. The applicant has intentionally designed it to at least be able to accommodate the 2 business uses on the first floor, and as a result, he's been able to put into ADA compliant bathrooms, which wouldn't fit if everything sort of was compressed. And I just want to make the one point that I genuinely appreciate the desire to preserve those big trees, but on a lot like this, and I don't rule out the idea that the applicant could come back and do a pay for parking in lieu of spaces. But I just want to make the point that on a lot like this, where you're trying to create a commercial structure that's fits within this zoning district, and you're suddenly having to think through the updated septic regulations, the parking requirements. There's a 4-foot walkway on the side of the property to really be thoughtful about being ADA compliant. There's ADA bathrooms in the structure. You do start to really see the constraints of construction, and I think layering more on can like, each layer is very, very reasonable, but when taken in total, I think it does begin to really create a burden on the applicant. Now that said, if there is a way to save, when I look at that aerial, I can see 2 trees in front of this particular lot, and I could imagine creating an island for one of them, and that would, I think, still allow it to leaf out and maybe provide some of the benefit that the board is looking for. It would be very similar to the lot next door. I will make the comment that just 2 lots to the south, clearly there was a tree there and it's gone now, right? It's all parking lot. So that parking has been allowed. And I do want to make sure that we're being as consistent as possible. So those are my thoughts about that.
Okay, just really quickly, not to go back and forth, but the building down the street, I imagine that did conform, and the reason that zoning was laid out for this obviously was the character of the neighborhood and the building separation. So it seems like you're basically asking us for the variance so that you have more square footage. That's
Okay.
But we'll leave it at that for now.
Well, and going to that, the 7-foot variance is a large variance. I'm wondering, was there any thought given to making this project smaller? You're asking for 2 retail spaces within this very small lot.
Can I just ask 1 second? I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm getting messages from LTV. And are you expecting someone else to join in on the applicant side? There's a caller coming in. I don't know, is Katie?
Yeah. Andrew, are you with someone?
I'm not.
Katie? Is it Katie?
What's the number?
There are 2 numbers. One starts with the 646. They were in the waiting room, but they left. There's still someone in with the 203. That's the area code.
No.
No, okay, because we just didn't want anyone to be missing out if they are intended to be in.
Right. I can jump in and make an announcement for those on LTV or calling in. If you could hang up your phones now, if you're not involved in this hearing, that would be very helpful, so we don't clog up the lines. And for the next hearing, when we're doing the field report and the applicant's agent is speaking, you have plenty of time to call in for the next Laura McCall hearing. So if you're not involved in this hearing, if you could hang up, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jameson. Go ahead, Terry or Ed or whoever was.
John, I'd just like to jump back in and answer something that Andrew said.
Yeah.
If we're looking at this lot, there are 2 trees in the front. The one that's to the right, it would be further east, is the one that's in character with the others that run down the road.
Yeah, I agree completely.
So
That'd be a
that's the
nice one
one-
to save.
That's the one when you stand there, you realize that there's a symmetry in the spacing, the symmetry in the size, that
Yeah.
they fit and it was planned. The other one is a nice tree. I would understand that everything can't be preserved.
Yeah.
I would say, in reference to the structure that's 2 lots to the west, if a tree was removed there and it was not saved for whatever reason, through whatever hearing happened, I don't see that as a precedent that encourages me to eliminate the one in front of your lot. If maybe that should have been saved, maybe
Yeah,
it
it
was.
looks like it.
But right now, yeah, I would say when you go there, you think, oh, it's a shame they didn't save the tree. Right now, we're discussing this lot, and on this lot, this tree seems to be significant enough that the effort that you suggest is possible, Andrew, that your client might consider changing the parking a bit to create that peninsula, to leave it, would really benefit long-term the beautification of this road.
Yeah.
That's not on the tree.
Thank you, Ed.
Can
Go
I
ahead.
say something just to forward that point, and I won't go long. I'll wait until afterwards, and then Marco and I will discuss
Sure.
it probably in more depth. But first of all, Marco, would you mind, could you put up the site plan again and zoom in on that area of trees in the front? I just want to see if on any of the plans, the trees were actually illustrated on the plan. And what I'm getting at is, after looking at these plans, if we can look at the aerial again,
Yeah,
those lines on our GIS are not exact. In
yeah,
fact, if you look at the Kazura building, which is the building to the southwest
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
if you notice where the sidewalk is at the front of the lot,
yeah,
that you'll notice that the lot lines are kind of in the middle of that sidewalk.
yeah,
I suspect those lines are off and that you would probably have to shift those lines a little bit to the southeast. I think the red line that represents that front yard line probably matches up with the
yeah.
inner
Got
half of that sidewalk. And what I'm getting at there is that tree, the one tree, it looks like there's 2 trees right in front of the subject parcel. I
Right.
think the southwestern one is probably right on the property line, if not
Okay.
actually on the neighboring property, the Martell's property.
Uh-huh.
So that one might not even actually be on the subject property. It might not be affected by the proposed parking. Obviously, the other one to the northeast it's in the middle of where they're proposing the parking, and under the current plan, it would be removed. As was just mentioned before, you could put an island. You would lose at least 1 parking space in the right of way, maybe 2. But I just want to point out that it looks like that more southwestern tree might not actually even be on the subject parcel. That the other site plan, Marco, I think might have showed it. It might have showed a utility pole instead on the corner.
So that's, if I could jump in, Eric. So if it say on this, if you could hold that, Marco, you see where it says fence post, right? You see that by 26.5 foundation pin? So you're saying it could be the tree could be right down by that corner. The tree might not even be on this property, you've said. So therefore, that's out of the issue, but we can still save the tree we're talking about, correct? I mean, there's a possibility, correct?
Yeah, and I don't know that for sure, but I was looking at the aerial, and those lines don't match up exactly, and it looks like it might actually be right on the property line or actually on that vacant lot to the west.
Yeah. I think, Andrew, right away, you're going to want to get those trees located on your survey, no matter what. I think the whole board would like to see that.
And I think that we have to look at that carefully, Mr. Chairman, if we're going to look at what the nexus is for our approval or disapproval.
Exactly.
And that's my point earlier. I think we're looking at a lot line variance. I think we should be discussing that. And be careful how we discuss the importance of the trees if they're not on the property. That's my point from earlier.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So I'm looking at what the nexus is of what we're discussing on this application.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point, Roy. Anyone else on the board want to, before we go to the planning department, have a comment or question to Andrew?
Well, I had the question of if they considered making the project smaller to avoid that 7-foot variance.
Yeah, that's where I was going to.
They're again, there are 2 retail spaces that are being proposed.
Yeah, we have considered it. I think the project is very, very similar in size to nearly every other a building. For instance, 801 Montauk Highway. I think we've designed this project to reflect the existing buildings on similarly sized lots. I think we've already made it smaller when we were in front of the planning board, and that was in part to accommodate the parking. And I think, you know, that there is a reality to the cost of construction and whether this project makes sense to move forward if it needs to be constrained further. Is I think the applicant's problem. We're entitled to 2 uses in a commercial zone. As of right, there's a reason for that. It's because in order to invest in this community, the 2 retail uses are a way for an owner to make ends meet, to make it profitable.
So Andrew, let me ask you one quick question, then we'll go to the planning department. You're obviously looking for your square footage.
Yeah.
You see where it says on this survey, the proposed porch there in the front on South Euclid? Yeah. Is that in your buildable envelope if you were to use some of that proposed porch for your building and not have it porch? Is that conforming to the building envelope, the front yard setback?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
That's like a lot, and you've got all the space in the back, the proposed porch on the rear, and that's a lot of that square footage is your variance, and it's so when you're locating the trees on the survey, it would be helpful to have the principal yard setbacks and the accessory yard setbacks on the survey, because it seems to me if you took advantage of that square footage, you wouldn't even need your variance.
Well, I just want to, so like, for instance, the proposed porch at the rear, that's somebody's house, right? So that's going to be, that's for the apartment. And there are some of those types of considerations. The other thing
but the apartment's on the second floor. Okay.
Yeah.
It could be over buildable. It could be over. I'm not going to design your project. I would like to see the setbacks, and I think you might get my point. I'm not going to try to redesign the project for you, but my point is the building envelope, there might be a lot more conforming space in the allowable building envelope, whereby, and I'd like to see that when I make my determination on this, what that envelope is, because.
Sure, we can try to put the building envelope. I will say that the pushback on the side yard variance surprises me, given that this is in this commercial building district, and there's some. We tried to lay this out in our submission, but the town's goal in commercial business district is to get commercial buildings to be close to each other, and there's a footnote in the setback table that says that the side yard setback doesn't apply in a commercial building district at all. So if you think of like Easthampton Village, commercial business district, those buildings are right next to each other, right? There's no side yard setbacks. When we originally brought this project to the planning department and discussed it with Marguerite Wolfson, she confirmed that side yard setbacks did not apply. It was only maybe 6 or 8 months later, after we'd submitted to the planning board, that we got a different interpretation of that footnote. And that interpretation was the side yard setbacks only apply, the side yard setbacks do not apply if there are commercial buildings on both sides. Now, on this parcel, both neighboring parcels are commercial building districts. So the side yard setbacks seem to me to be something that are a little bit of a rubber stamp, in the sense that this is a commercial business district where the town is trying to encourage people to build close to the lot lines.
So let's go to the planning department, but I read that footnote, Andrew, and
I
it says
think we
if there's a
should.
building abuts, but if there's an existing building, then it doesn't apply. So let's go to the planning department, then we can maybe get back to that. We spent plenty of time for your application here so far, okay?
Sure.
Way more than we normally would or should, but we had a lot of questions, so there we go.
Okay.
So I'm going to go to the planning department now. Marco, if you would, please.
Of course. So good evening, board members. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you.
First time I'm presenting from the ZBA. So if you ever have any questions, of course, I know we already asked a lot, but if you have any other questions as I'm speaking, feel free to interrupt me. So to start, I guess we'll discuss the footnote that is being referenced. That's in the zoning table dimension of regulations. That is footnote number 8. So setbacks are to apply if for footnote number 8, if building is not to directly abut a business building on either side. So I just want to lay that out front first. So the applicant has mentioned 801 Montauk Highway, which is located to the south. I'm going to pull back on the aerial to show you where that is. So 801 Montauk Highway was referenced as a parcel that has been granted lesser setbacks with a 10-foot setback on one side and a 3-foot setback on one side. I believe this is the parcel, which is 801 Montauk Highway. But the planning department wants to note that that business, or that building, I'm sorry, was constructed in 2014. And there was a building at 805 Montauk Highway, which is next door, that had already been constructed up to the property line. So because that building was already there, Chapter 255-11-10, which is the code that discusses about setbacks, that piece of the code permitted lesser setbacks at 801 Montauk Highway when it was constructed. But I wanted to make it known that 805 Montauk Highway was constructed at a time right up to the property lines in 1970, when the applicable code section at the time, which was section 500 of the zoning ordinance, did not require any side yard setbacks for that property. So other properties that are also in the area, to kind of give you an idea of relative to this parcel, we have mentioned before this parcel here, which is 88 South Euclid Avenue, which is the site plan of Kazura, is a similar size and shape as the subject parcel, and it was also constructed with a 10-foot side yard setback. The parcel immediately to the east, which is the Beckman property, 94 South Euclid Avenue, which is a corner lot, which has a site plan that's currently approved, with parking in the right of way, and with setbacks that are also 10 feet. So along this side, they will have a 10-foot side yard setback. I'm going to put up a picture that kind of demonstrates that. So for this side of South Euclid Avenue, you can see, as I mentioned before, to the left, Kazura, which has a 10-foot side yard setback on each side, is at 1,080 square feet on the first floor. Beckman to the right, which is to the immediate right, east, also has a side yard setback of 10 feet as well. From the planning board, the comments from the planning board stated that they have no objection to the applicant in applying for a variance of side yard setback relief. But those are just kind of the points in regards to the setback variance.
Could you hold that for a second, Eric?
Sure.
I mean, Marco, sorry. Marco, thank you. This is helpful.
Yeah.
So the building on the left, I imagine that looks like it conforms to front yard off the street setbacks too, I imagine, when you think? That one
Yes.
right there,
So
exactly.
this
So
one
that would-
states 10 feet.
Yeah, so that would be, to go back to my kind of questioning, I imagine that's the case over there. That's all, thank you.
Okay.
Continue, please, Marco.
Yeah, sure. In discussing about the second variance that's being asked that's being requested in regards to the parking spaces. The total number of parking spaces that's required for the square footage of the building and for the apartment is 7, which is 6 reserved for the retail uses and 1 space for the apartment use. So as it's currently designed and which is the same for Kazura, which is next door, that also required 7 spaces, just for reference. So as it's lined up currently is in the interest of good planning, in terms of having proper consistency and lining up the sidewalks and lining up the parking spaces. So the board has also allowed variances for parking as well in the right of way for, as I mentioned, Kazura and Beckman as well. So the planning board has expressed support for the application for parking in the right of way, provided that the superintendent of highways does not object or find issue with the proposed parking. The superintendent of highways has expressed no objection so long as no curbing is to protrude. So overall, those are kind of the major points. If you have any questions, please let me know.
One question, Marco, regarding the parking in the back on the south side, is that entrance coming off South Essex Street? Is that how the cars will get there?
So, yeah, that's one way in which they can access the town alleyway. So this is the alleyway here that's in the rear. When Beckman was approved, they are to improve their section of the town alleyway as well. I say their section of the town alleyway, but basically for their parking spaces in the rear, to get proper access, they have to also make improvements to the town alleyway, which is what was done as well for Kazura. As you can see, they've improved their section to allow proper access for the rear parking spaces. So I guess to answer your question, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the idea would be to connect that, excuse me, to connect that alleyway from both the east and west approaches.
Yep. It's great for fire access, obviously, too. Thank you, Marco. Great job and nice to have you with us. Any other questions, board members, for Marco or Eric?
Well, I want to jump in here about the size of the building. You know, we're looking for, the applicant's looking for this 7-foot variance. And I've heard Andrew's argument. And on page 7 of the document he produced, he says that it would be difficult to design a building to fit into this space to fit the client's needs. Certainly a building can be designed as 20 feet wide. I can see if we go to the first floor plan, please, do you have that, Marco?
Yes, just give me a second.
I have just 2 questions about this. One is that right now, of course, you're within 3 feet of the side yard. Now, we've asked Beckman to stay 10 feet off the property as planned to the west of there is going to have a 10-foot setback. They're looking for a 3-foot setback. It seems as if we're allowing this structure. And by the way, I haven't seen any elevations of it. We just have.
Do we have any? I'm not sure. I'd like to see those if we do available, Marco. I'm going to miss those in a packet.
I'm not. Oh, elevations of the building itself?
Yeah.
Yes.
The proposed building, yeah.
Oh,
They
yeah.
should be in that set of plans.
Yeah, great. Oh, yeah, there we are. Right.
So we're putting this building, you can see the north elevation here on your left, and you can see that this is a fairly sizable structure that's been with 3 feet of their property line. I think it's a big ask. I think you're asking us to approve a 7-foot variance here on a property that could accommodate a smaller building. Now, if you want to go back to that floor plan for a minute, the first floor plan, just go back a couple. It's pretty clear. It's pretty clear. Here we are. Stop. Come back. No. You went by. Go back.
You went too fast. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
A101. Yeah. A110.
Clear. This is set up with 2 entries and 2 exits, the 2 ADA bathrooms, so that these 2 separate businesses can function. Once that wall goes between the 2, then that would be the way in which this would function. I agree that that's ideal for the applicant. But it may not be something that we're going to look favorably on just so that we can accommodate those 2 businesses. Having a right to do it and having property that will accommodate it may be 2 separate questions. The other question I have is we put ADA parking out on the north side of the building, but they have to actually get themselves to the back of the building up the ramp in order to come in. They're going to take that sidewalk that you're proposing, that 4-foot sidewalk.
No,
come
there's a
around
ramp
the
in
side.
front. There's a ramp in front.
Excuse me?
There's a ramp in front.
There's a ramp in front? That was
You
not
can see it on the survey.
Okay. Well, that was not evident on the drawing. Thought the ramp had to have a certain incline and that it did not fit out front. If it is, I'd like to see that. And lastly, there was a reference to a planting plan. I have not seen that in the package that I received, and before, I'd like to make that available to us before we make our decision in the future. That would be me asking Marco if we can get that to us, if in fact you have it.
There is a landscaping plan that is within the planning board files, and it's illustrated here. Of course, it's tentative as well.
Mhm.
So,
Okay. Well, Ed, thank you for that, Marco. I think any other,
I have.
give
I have
Andrew one more.
question. I have
Go
one
ahead, Roy.
question, Mr. Chairman. Regarding the adjacent properties, do either one of them provide mixed use or residential use on the second floor?
yes. So for the Cruzura building, if I go back to it, which was the one that's of a similar size and shape in terms of the size of the parcel, that second floor is for an apartment, as you can see written here.
Yeah, they got a 1,080 square foot apartment in that footprint.
Right, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And the Beckman property to the east on the corner lot is first story veterinary office and then second story regular office, non-medical
Yeah.
office.
Yeah. Excellent. Any other questions, board members? Comments?
Can I say something briefly? Or
Of
is it-
course, of course. Oh, Eric, I'm sorry. Of course you can.
That's
Go
okay.
ahead.
No, I was waiting for the discussion to carry along.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'd just like to point out, I mean, technically, I think there are 3 variances here, but there's really 2 main categories. One is the parking, and then the other is the side yard setbacks. With regard to the parking, the process we have, and it's not codified, but what we've done is there's really 2 methods if you can't fit the parking on site. Or I shouldn't say that. If you can fit the parking on site, but we want it in the right of way just to match the existing design of the neighborhood, we let the applicant come for variances, which they're requesting right now.
Mhm.
The other alternative is them paying fees in lieu of parking. The current rate for fees in lieu of parking is $15,000 per space. We've kind of adopted the policy, it's not codified, that if they can demonstrate that they could fit the parking on site, but because of the design of the neighborhood, we don't want them to, we've let them come for the variances with the planning board's, approval to do so, because getting the variances is less expensive than paying $15,000 for, in this case, 3 parking spaces. So that's sort of the policy and the way that things have been handled, in the past on numerous applications, both on this block and other blocks in downtown Montauk. So that's why really they're before you under that avenue of asking for variances as opposed to fees in lieu, basically because the planning board said, we'll let you apply for the variances rather than force you to pay, which is more expensive. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
I'll just quick interrupt you for a second. So that's interesting. And Jameson, if feel free to comment, please. So to your point, Eric, it is, as I understand it, we could, as a board, we could allow the parking variance for 2 of the 3 if we wanted to save that tree, for instance, just making for instance.
That was exactly what I was just about to get to.
Oh, great, great.
I don't know that the planning board, Marco, you could probably confirm this, but I don't think that the planning board really had too much discussion about those street trees when we were reviewing it in the site plan review. Am I right?
Not really. In terms of removing the trees that are already there, of course, we've discussed putting in street trees and for the applicant's landscaping plan, but that's really as far as it really went. So
yeah, that's the way I remember it too.
We're a greener board than they are.
Yeah,
We're much more green. Go ahead, please, Eric.
Yeah, well, yeah. So I think it was Roy who was saying that, normally it is something that comes up more commonly in front of the planning board about preserving street trees.
Mhm.
That's expressly written in the subdivision chapter. So when they're reviewing subdivisions, that always comes up,
Mhm.
either planting street trees or preserving them. But based upon the conversation that was had here, you're exactly right, Mr. Chairman. I think that if the zoning board did want to do that, did want to see that tree in the right of way illustrated, and perhaps, as I said before, you're going to lose at least one parking space, maybe two, depending upon where it is. You could ask the applicant to illustrate where that is and put a median around it. That's certainly feasible. Obviously, that would result in one less parking space. I think probably the way that would be handled would be that then the planning board would have to agree to allow the applicant to pay fees in lieu for one parking space.
Mhm.
That's probably consistent just with the policy that we've had. I'll Andrew, you can address that. Maybe just hold that thought for 1 second though, because this is new to Andrew. We hadn't thrown that idea out to him.
Right.
And obviously, he has to talk to his client, I'm sure.
Mhm. Mhm.
But so that's really, so that's kind of, I think, the majority, or a good summary of the parking part. The other part is the setbacks, and I don't really have much to add to what Marco said. I think he laid it out pretty well. Our understanding of that code footnote is basically that gives the planning board the opportunity to, where you have existing development on a block where there are existing buildings built to the property line or within the setbacks, to continue that design and aesthetic.
Right.
Everybody on this board, I'm sure, is familiar with, downtown Montauk along Main Street, just to the south of this block, or actually part of the southern portion of this block. In the area of White's Pharmacy, Shagwong, that whole area, all of those buildings are built to the property line almost all of them along Main Street, the hardware store, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, if this were a vacant lot that was in that strip, it would probably be recommended that aesthetic be continued. That's not the case on the northern side of this block. As Marco already pointed out, as numerous board members already pointed out, the Kazura building was built to meet the setbacks. And it is also a two-story mixed-use building with retail on the bottom and an apartment on the top. They were able to meet the setbacks. As Marco also pointed out, the Beckman property on the corner was approved to meet the setbacks. So, the only other properties on the northern side of this block are the parking lot, which is obviously a moot point. And then that other vacant lot in between Kazura and the subject parcel, which, as I said, is owned by Martell's to the south. So, there's one building that's built, one that was approved, that both meet the setbacks. It just seems obvious to the planning department, and that's why we made this recommendation and analysis to the planning board and also to you, the ZBA, that aesthetic be continued, and that the setbacks be meet. It doesn't seem that there's any, just looking at the Kazura building, it doesn't seem like there's any reason why this lot can't be designed to meet the 10-foot setbacks. There, as I said, if you're looking at Main Street, there are situations where that footnote should be invoked because it does make sense to build right to the property line.
Mhm.
But, the reason for having setbacks is also to, prevent the overall massing of buildings along a block.
Mhm.
You've been having a discussion about preserving street trees along this side of that block to maintain somewhat of a rural, maybe not rural, but some foliage, a less urban feel. And we feel that requiring the 10-foot setbacks would just further that existing and already kind of approved continuation of that aesthetic on this side of the block. So
Eric, has that viewpoint been discussed within the planning board?
it has, probably not in the detail that we're discussing here.
It is not. And I'm sorry to cut in, but
That's okay.
I'm feeling a little upset that we're 2 years into this project. We've been in front of the planning board, 3 or 4 times. All of the indications that we got from the planning board were that this is the first that I'm hearing that there's an aesthetic problem from the planning department. All of the indications from the planning board have been that this building is designed with the setbacks, in a way that does not cause a problem.
Well,
So-
Andrew, you are before the ZBA, and we have to ask these questions.
I understand. I appreciate asking the questions. I take exception to the town planner, who's been at all the other meetings, bringing this up for the first time this far down in the process, particularly given the history of where this footnote where the interpretation of this footnote has traveled. So, what I was going to say is sort of make a gentle point about that when you're weighing up a variance, you look at the character of the neighborhood. The character of the neighborhood is a commercial business zone. You can look at the southerly part along Main Street and see development right to the lot line. It should at least be considered by the board that an 1,100 square foot building on this lot is a reasonable and a modest building. We're not trying to like push our luck. We've really scaled it back, listening to the planning department's advice all along the way. So now we're in front of the zoning board and we're making our application. And it strikes me, it catches me out to hear them say that not only is that their interpretation is such that they're trying to maintain some aesthetic that we've never heard about before.
Okay,
Well,
Andrew.
we're dealing with something where the two adjoining properties have complied with setbacks. It's similar.
Those
to
aren't adjoining properties.
Right, but it's similar to pyramid rule too. If the two adjoining properties have complied to pyramid, why should the other pyramid? It's similar.
I hear that point. I think that representation Marco showed you is a little misleading because the adjacent property is vacant. So what he's done is edited out the actual adjacent property and put in the property 2 down. And then
Andrew, I'm going to jump. Hold on, guys. I'm going to jump in
They
here.
met setbacks when it was built.
Yeah, Terry, I'm going to jump in here. Andrew, we have given this an hour, this hearing.
Yeah.
And you've had more than enough time. We appreciate. We've had a lot of discussion. This board is so interested in this, obviously, and that's how it happened. And so I'm really going to shut this down because we appreciate all of your input. Whether Eric had said what he just said or not, frankly, is not what's affecting this. We all have our opinions. You're before the zoning board. You knew when you designed this building you needed a 7-foot variance. So we've heard it all, and I'm saying that's enough time here tonight. So I'm going to ask.
John, can I say just one thing very quick in support of what Andrew just said? I'd just like to make it clear that these are not my words are not the words of the planning board. The planning board did not express those opinions that I just stated.
Thank you.
So he is correct on that. And perhaps, my wording was stronger than as something that's been previously discussed from the planning department. But I do feel that we were consistent in the site plan review in saying that there was an alternative to, there didn't seem to be a reason why it could not meet the 10-foot setbacks. And we did bring that up during the
Right. Well, thank you. As planners, you're defending the zoning. You're looking at the code, and we understand that and appreciate it. I think we've given this plenty of time for the evening.
I have a quick
Terry, go ahead. I'm not going to shut a board member off.
Quick yes or no question for Eric, actually. The parking, if it were to be permitted, that's public parking, is it not, these spaces in the right of way?
That's correct. And in your field report, you had shown photos of the Kazura property, having put up signs saying that it's for their business only. There is absolutely no legal enforcement of that. That is town property. There is no covenant over those spaces. There's no condition of the site plan approval that limits them to use of that business.
Okay.
So those signs are essentially meaningless from a legal standpoint.
Right, so if these were approved, it would be for anybody?
Correct.
With no signs, okay.
Okay, thanks. So Andrew, I think it seems like it would be appropriate. The written record is going to be open for quite a while, as you know. I think it would be appropriate and beneficial to you to have those trees located on the survey and the accessory and side principal, the setbacks, please, if you would, as a reference for this board. And as well, if you want to come back with a scenario, just to say as a scenario of showing a tree being saved after you have it surveyed and a parking, whatever situation would fit with that tree, that may be beneficial to you as well, just as a reference to this board.
Yep, that makes sense.
Okay.
I think the applicant would be happy to work with the board on saving those trees.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Marco and Eric for your work on this application. Terry, would you like to close this out, please?
Sure.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, public comment? Any public
Public
comment?
comment.
Oh, thank you. Yes, thank you. And
All right, Ed.
Mike, anyone there for us at LTV?
No, Chair. There are no callers, and just so that the public knows, this is a outside line I'm calling in on. The lines are available, but there are no callers.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Okay, great. Okay, Terry, I think we're good to go then, so to speak.
Okay, so for the application of 92 South Euclid LLC at 92 South Euclid Avenue in Montauk, tax map 300-49-1-15, make a motion to close the public hearing and to leave the written record open for a period of 2 weeks from the time the transcript of this meeting is posted to the website.
Second?
I concur.
I concur.
And I concur as well. Okay, thank you, Terry. Thank you, Andrew, Marco, Eric. Thank you all.
Thank you for having me.
Take care. Okay, we'll move along, board members. Next, we have the next public hearing this evening. The applicant is Laura Mcconnell. Lot size and location is 44,983 square feet at 52 Private Road in Amagansett, tax map number 300-109-1-8. Description is to construct a 528 square feet of additions, approximately 1,400 square feet of decking, a 480 square foot swimming pool, pool equipment, a 6,000 square foot detached garage, driveway, and an upgraded sanitary system, and to clear 6,317 square feet of dune vegetation on a parcel of land containing wetlands, surface waters, dunes, and dune vegetation. The relief sought 3 variances and a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-4-20 of the Easthampton Town Code are required for this application. Variances of 9 feet and 30 feet from 255-4-30 of the Town Code are required to construct the proposed additions approximately 91 feet and decking approximately 70 feet. Tidal wetlands where 100-foot setbacks are required. 1 variance of 7.8 feet is required from 255-4-40 of the Town Code to construct the proposed decking 41.2 feet from the dune crest where a 50-foot setback is required, and any other relief necessary. This is in an A residence zoning district, and the flood zone here is AE, flood zone elevation 11 feet, and the secret class is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
Hello, board. Yes, I have an affidavit of service and posting. I also have copies of the mailings, and it appears that everything is in order. I also wanted to just mention, Chair, I got a message from LTV that in addition to Joel Halsey on the line, Andy Hammer is also in the Zoom waiting room. So I guess, I don't know how you guys usually do this, but if it's okay with you, I believe he's in for this application as well.
Yeah, if you could let those both in. Thanks, Jameson. And then Mike, if you could let them, they can come in
We're
whenever they
sitting
want.
next to each other.
Oh,
Excellent. Good.
you too.
All right, as long as they keep quiet during my field report, we'll let them in.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, I'm muting myself.
Okay, thank you, Jameson. Okay, okay, so this is in my Amagansett district. Tyler is going to help me out. Thank you, Tyler. So board members, you know where we are, I believe. I'm sure you all do. And to the public, this is down in Napeague by Napeague Harbor. You take the Napeague Harbor Road right past the tennis courts when you're heading east. You make that left, and we'll see later in the survey in the planning department aerial. And then you go down and you make a left back onto Private Road, which is sort of angling back towards the highway, towards the south and the east. It's literally just, you'll see it in these photos. It's not even as improved as this driveway. So anyway, this is a first shot. Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you, Tyler. That's helpful. Just to give you, that's good. It's a reference of where we are in the world here. So there you see. And the black line is a private road that's kind of like a very ruddy, unimproved road. One single lane. Okay, thank you for that, Tyler. And we'll go to the first slide again. It's basically showing it's been posted nicely and properly. And that's kind of a view of the driveway, obviously, in the whole house. And you see the turnoff where that car is parked, and that's referenced on your survey as kind of a reference point. Next shot, please, Tyler. Here I spun around 180 degrees, and right across the street is where Dr. Bistrian's property that this board approved is underway. And then next slide, please, Tyler. And now I just turned 90 degrees to the left, looking back down private road to give you a sense of the road and this beautiful, natural vegetation in that whole area there. So that's kind of looking due east or southeast a bit, that shot. Next shot, please, Tyler. I believe, this is when I've walked in the driveway. I mentioned that pull off on the parking where that car is parked. I'm kind of near that car. That's the shade of the car. And I want to take this shot showing you a sense of that's where the garage is proposed in that vegetation right there, that area of the site. Next, please, Tyler. Here I've turned kind of to the left to show you angling up. As you know, the pool that was proposed they've resubmitted another survey without the pool. But this is kind of that angle of the house looking at where those proposed additions and the decking is proposed on kind of that portion of the house on the southerly side of the house there, southern and western, pardon me. Next, Tyler. Here I move pan to the other side towards the east and looking on the, pardon me, the northeastern side of the house. And that's where the proposed second-story addition is, right in that area there. And then next, please, Tyler, I walk through this underpass here, and now I've come out. It's a bad shot. The water's beyond. But I take this shot, pardon me, looking out to show you where the proposed deck on the survey at the very top, proposed deck addition is kind of in this area. You see the existing deck that's still on the survey in white. Next shot, please. Here I kind of pan to the right, looking kind of due northeast, give you a sense of the beautiful area and that natural vegetation. Next, please. And then I walked out a little bit and scrolled back towards the east to show you the neighboring houses, give you the character of the neighborhood there. Next, please. Then I scroll kind of 180, almost back to show you what that northwestern portion of the house looks like, where these and also the vegetation, the topography. Next, please. I think I pan to the right. I pan to the right here, looking back at kind of towards the art barge up there and back at Napeag stretch and the ocean beyond that. Next, please, Tyler. Just trying to give you a sense up the beach that and in the opposite direction. Next, Tyler. Then I look back. That gives you a feel of the overall house from this walkway here down by the water. Next, please. And I walked back through the house and took a more close look at where the proposed addition is on that corner of the house. Next, please. That might be it. Then I did one final full house shot. And that's my field report. Any questions, board members? No? Okay, somebody might have their TV.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, what's the date of the survey?
The survey, you know what, I don't, in front of me.
January 8th? Is that dated?
Yeah, it looks like January 8th, 2021.
Yeah, January 8th, that's correct.
Good. Okay, no questions then. Let's go to the applicant's agents. Good evening, Andy and Joel. Good evening to you.
Good evening, Chairman Whelan, members of the board. Andy Hammer, I'm here with Joel Halsey. And as Jameson already mentioned, I believe I have Laura McCall and Robert Manley are probably on hold, as is Lewis McCall, who's the architect as well as Laura's father. They purchased this property a couple years ago. However, they're far from being new residents of the area. The McCall family, as many of us might know, have been residents of Amagansett continuously since 1909. I do think that's important to understand in the context of this application. I think John's field inspection did a pretty good job of just showing this is a pretty special area. It's a lovely little private street at the end of the road that has some, residential use. And I think it was also helpful that you could see when John spun around the Bruce Bistrian property with the driveway that's going in. As a matter of fact, I think we emailed an aerial photo that was taken by Lewis recently that maybe we could screen share. It will show you that construction site as it's being put in. I don't know if Tyler has that available, but he could plop that up. It might be helpful.
Why is that pertinent to tonight, Andy?
Well, it's the proximity, and it shows that they've done a really good job in terms of constraining their building. The driveway and the access. It shows what's possible to do when you're working within tight clearing areas.
Okay.
So,
I did take a walk. I'll interrupt and say I took a walk down the driveway, and I have to agree, it's a very tight window, and it's nice to see it being done properly. I'll say that.
So I think that's a success story. But it's also a pretty major project at the end of the day too.
Yes.
In as close proximity as you can get. It's literally across the street from this property. I wanted to draw the board's attention, as Chairman Whelan mentioned, revised plans that we submitted that are referenced on the January 8th survey that omitted a proposed swimming pool. The pool, which would have been fully compliant with all wetland setbacks and dimensional requirements, was withdrawn by the applicants, partially based on objections from the planning department, as well as their own effort to diminish the amount of disturbance to the site. That was a major modification that I thought was important for us to note at the onset of this application. What remains after the deletion of the pool, I think I would deem pretty minor additions to the residence. There's 528 square feet of total additions and a detached garage. There's some decking that you can see on the survey. There's a small deck proposed on the north side of the residence and another deck on the south side, basically the entrance side of the property. Perhaps the greatest single improvement that we're proposing is the upgrade of the sanitary system. That will require a fair amount of clearing and grading to install the low nitrogen sanitary system, but the location we've chosen both maximizes wetland setbacks from the wetlands of Montauk Harbor, as well as wetlands to the south, which are closer to the Bistrian property that you showed in that photo looking down the driveway. The additions proposed are Fema compliant. This was required by Ann Glennon, and it was something that I wasn't that familiar with. But the additions all are Fema compliant and constructed in a Fema compliant manner. They're constructed on cantilever. Basically, they don't have a first floor under them. They don't touch the ground. There's a small addition proposed on the first floor of 25 square feet that is allowable under FEMA because it's used to provide access, a stairway access to the second story that becomes more compliant. But that's the first time I had encountered that after showing these plans to Ann. Basically, my clients loved this existing residence and had no interest in demolishing the structure, even if it could have resulted in a potentially larger residence. By placing the additions on the landward side of the residence, we required very minimal wetland setback variances of 9 feet from the wetlands for the addition. That's measured from an indent from mean high water. You can see on the survey, there's a little indent. That's where we get to the variance. I think if you extended the mean high water line across, we'd probably be largely compliant. The balance of the additions meet or exceed the required wetland setback. The only other relief we requested is for a small deck addition that you'll see on the front of the residence. It basically squares off the deck on the front of the residence. That triggers both a wetland setback variance because the existing residence and deck and everything are non-compliant at that point, as well as a small bluff crest setback. It's really a pretty minor addition to the decking in front of the residence, and it's over an existing walkway. If you look at the survey, that would naturally be the focal point of the residence along the Peak Harbor. Deck addition is about 120 square feet in total on that side of the house. The garage is proposed largely within the area that will be excavated from removal of the existing sanitary system and the installation of the new sanitary system. So if you look, you'll see that the corner of the garage is over the existing leaching pools. I don't know if those are ground located, but I think that's what they were able to determine where they were located. The sanitary system will be 170 feet from the wetlands in the Peak Harbor and at least 150 feet from the wetlands to the south. There are no variances requested for the garage. It is a necessary structure. As this house has no basement, it's an important storage location for watercraft, chairs, other items you would typically at the house. It's also a pretty harsh environment to store a car at. I think one of the drawings showed that there was a garage attached to the house. That garage is going to be of limited utility. It might even be removed entirely as part of this application because of the additions that are proposed on the front of the house. I'm familiar with the unique attributes of the area, and I handle permits for, some of the adjacent properties, including the Irvin property, the Tang property, the Diamond property, which was most recently in front of the board. They're a little farther east up the private road. There's also a fairly recent approval for the Kushner property. I think you could see that in the area, or the picture that John took. That's the residence that's 2 lots over to the east in the one photo that John took. The subject property is a much larger lot than many of these comparable properties. Essentially, this is nearly an acre lot in size, and it can accommodate more development than those smaller lots. But the house will belong to the same size as these typical neighborhood residential structures. We just want modest additions to the residence on the second-story cantilevers, some small deck additions on the front and rear of the house, and a garage for storage adjacent to the upgraded sanitary system. I'm trying to be brief, but if you have any questions for us, please feel free to ask them. I respectfully submit that what we submitted is both consistent with the NRSP standards, fairly modest. It meets the variance standards for the small deck and the second floor addition, which are proposed on the landward side of the residence, which is what the zoning code guides us to do. And it's also, I think the completed construction or proposed construction would be consistent with the character of this very unique area of town. The sanitary upgrade is perhaps the single greatest improvement to the environmental conditions we can offer, and we think it's maximized by the location that we proposed on the survey.
Thank you, Andy. Before, did you say, I was looking at the survey, I got distracted. Did you say something earlier about the garage? Anything else about what you'd propose with the garage? I might just misheard you.
Well, this is there's a small garage door that you could see in some of your photos. It is proposed to remain a garage. This is more a storage garage. It's going to be closer and more convenient for them to put cars in than the one under the house. I personally have a attached garage. I don't think I've ever had a car in it in my house.
So you're saying they have an attached garage? They had the existing they're using. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we know they have the garage there, but that's going to be storage, and the proposed is meant for the cars. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
What's the date on the updated site plan? Is it the one I have here? Still shows the pool and pool house?
January 8th.
January 8th, 21. So, okay.
Yeah, that's the one that's shown currently on.
Just page C1 that was updated with that removal?
Yeah, I believe that site plan. The survey is probably more illustrative at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I ask a question while you're pulling that up to Andy
Sure.
and to the chair, because I'm
Sure.
getting a message from LTV that Laura McCall is on the phone. And then there's a 203 number that has leaving the waiting room. Andy, do you want them to be let in right now? Is that
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
John?
That's
Yeah, that's fine. If someone's here from the public, they can wait. But if the owners are here, they're part of Andy's presentation. That's fine.
Andy, do you know if the other people that you said that were going to call in, do you happen to know if their phone number starts with a 203 area code?
I'm checking right now. I'm sure if you let Laura in, she can tell you her mother's phone number better than I can.
Great.
Okay, Chair, I will unmute the caller right now that's coming in. The last two digits are 2252.
Okay.
That is
Is a Louis McCall.
So, I mean, I have a few questions, Mr. Chairman. Too.
Yeah, well, you know what do you want? Shall we hear from Laura, the owner, first, and then ask questions, or do you want to go ahead and do questions to Andy first, Roy?
Well, if he wants to be part of the presentation, we can go ahead and hear it.
That's what I was thinking. Okay, and then we'll give her 3 minutes like a consultant. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Is Laura on the line now? Is Laura with us?
Yes.
Good evening. Good evening. Laura, good evening. Are you an attorney? Otherwise, I have to swear you in if you're not an attorney.
I'm not an attorney.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Okay. Good evening.
Sorry.
And go ahead. We'll give you a few minutes. Go ahead.
Oh, just to say, I don't have much to add, but my father is the 203 number on the other line.
Okay.
And he had a few words that he was going to add. I don't want to take up more time than we need to. Thank
Chair,
you.
just to say, this is Mike from LTV.
Yeah.
The number has come and gone within the Zoom waiting room, but if it returns, I'll interrupt and inform you. Oh, wait, it's back. Okay.
Okay, let's let him be part of the presentation.
All right, I'm going to admit that now into the
Thank you.
Zoom. You'll see that in the Zoom
Part of the
video.
team.
Just one moment on that. Actually,
And
it's
I'm
just
sorry.
a telephone line.
Okay.
Laura, what is his name?
Lewis.
His,
Lewis, are you
Okay.
there?
his name is Louis Nichols. Yep.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
We can. Good evening. Are you an attorney, sir? Otherwise, I have to swear you in.
No.
Okay. Do you
No, no,
swear or
no.
affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, please. Good evening.
Good evening. I, in getting into the meeting, I didn't hear the last 3 minutes of conversation. I am the architect. I'm also Laura's father, longtime summer resident in that area, Devon Colony. And she and Robert asked me to do an addition. I tried to keep, to as great extent as possible, the flavor of the building itself. I happen to know Alfred DeVito, the architect. At least I knew him 35 years ago, roughly. And I think we've done an addition which has minimum impact on the site, but still gets a little more room, which we would like.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, he was a good architect, Mr. DeVito. Well, thank you for joining us. Board members, any questions for Andy?
Yeah,
or
I have a few questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Roy.
Andrew, how does the garage meet FEMA?
The new garage? An
Yeah.
accessory building, I don't believe needs to meet FEMA. It's not required to meet the base flood elevation of FEMA as a detached accessory structure.
What is, okay, we could check that. What is the new septic system? Is that by requirement or is that a mitigation?
I would say we're offering it as mitigation because we're not increasing bedroom count, but we thought it was reasonable.
No, not about, but that's not the requirement for a septic system is driven by cost of.
It's whether you're doing a substantial improvement.
Yeah.
We're not doing a substantial.
We're not doing a substantial improvement. Otherwise, we would have to render the house FEMA compliant. So we're with.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
That's what I want to get to because I want to see what is planned. I mean, this is a new owner on this, and quite honestly, we've seen this before. The proposed work as described here is based on the additions, but what is proposed as far as overall renovation? Because my guess is there's going to be a greater renovation, and if that's the case, does it drive it into the 50% rule? And I'm going to want to know that as a zoning board member, as far as the FEMA compliance.
I don't believe that there was.
No, we had significant discussions with Ann Glennon about this before we even brought this to the board. You know, clearly this is a DeVito house, and the intention was to preserve that house, not to render the house FEMA compliant, which in this case would involve lifting it, putting on piles, making it a flood. Yeah, but the extent of the interior renovations.
Will there be a renovation to the existing house is my question.
Right.
Will you be changing windows? Will you be changing siding? Will you be changing roofing?
Right.
Just windows and doors.
No.
You said windows and
Are
doors?
you willing? See, the issue here in this neighborhood, and especially the property, I was part of the zoning board, and I think a number of us were with the property across the street. That house is, the approval was of a similar size house, but it has severe restrictions moving forward. They're not allowed to put in a pool moving forward. They're restricted from doing that. They're restricted from doing further expansion, and it has to do with the sensitivity of the area which we're in. So I'm really curious on what that's going to be on this property.
regarding the next door, are they restricted by a covenant, or, because I didn't read that in the determination.
They covenanted, yes, Joel.
Okay.
And that was a specific concern of the zoning board at that time because of the sensitivity of the area.
I mean,
we're talking about.
with their property though, there's no way they could fit a pool on their property into a conforming location. So, having a covenant against the pool in that situation, I don't want to say it kind of doesn't really need to be done. I mean, it's great that it was done, but again, to put a covenant against a pool where you would have needed significant variances in order to get a pool in.
There is a covenant that prohibits the construction of a pool on that property. There is a covenant that says that it does establish a not permanent non-disturbance area overlay.
Somebody's making some noise there. So I'm looking at the plans actually right now, Roy, to your point, and I don't know if I heard Mr. McCall say they're planning on changing the doors and windows. And typically when you change the doors and the windows for the flashing and all that, you have to redo the siding, especially when it's this kind of siding. And I'm looking at the plans. It seems to me that the sanitary system, if you really did the numbers, would not be pure mitigation here. It seems this looks. I'm looking at the floor plans, the new work on the inside, the additions, and if you were changing out doors and windows, I think this would be pretty substantial, Andy, myself.
I mean, coastal resiliency is really important here, guys, and that's what we're concerned about.
Yeah, obviously, Andy and Joel know that good planning is picking up a house like this, making it FEMA compliant, moving it back, and then asking for the additions as part of that. That's what FEMA wants. That's what the town of Easthampton wants also.
And actually, if Ann Glennon is if you're going to do some renovations to the house and it triggers a HERS rating, that would also trigger is driven by the 50% rule. I think we should, as a zoning board, should know what the entire scope of the work will be.
I believe the entire scope of the work was done.
I want to see that in writing.
Okay, we're gonna the architect. Can you put Lewis McCall back on the phone? He could attest or try to attest to something like this. But we had, from discussions from day one, they could not bring this house into FEMA conformance without having to lift the whole house, which is something we were avoiding doing. So we had to avoid substantial expansion or substantial renovation, whichever it is in the situation, and therefore nothing was supposed to be done that would have triggered the requirement for FEMA compliance.
We stayed well below this threshold. We're not even close to a 50% expansion by square feet. I mean, that was.
It's driven by cost.
Yeah, if you look on the floor plan, though, also, Andy, almost half of the first floor it has new walls, right? A good more than 40%, something like that.
Interior walls.
Interior, yeah, still, and then the exterior with the additions and all. There's a lot going on here. And if you were going to replace siding windows, but let's move along. I think I agree with Roy. Let's move along. That you get us that information. I think
in this situation, what you're going to be asking for is an estimated cost of construction for the work.
And all the scope of the complete scope.
I want to see a defined scope of work.
An estimated cost of construction for the work to be done. You're going to need that, and then an appraisal for the existing structure.
And also a scope of the proposed work, not just a number.
The scope would be in the estimated cost of construction.
Let's start with the scope, because generally the building inspector is the one who enforces.
I agree with that.
I know.
Yeah.
Right. We agree with that. Okay, we're on the same page.
But I will tell you that was a careful consideration of us before we even started, because we did discuss a redevelopment, and that was not what the applicants wanted at all on this property. Right. The lovely house and the lovely neighborhood.
And then, I'm sure this board, we haven't discussed the NRSP part of this yet either, which is another issue.
Yeah.
Any questions, board members, before we go to the planning department?
Yeah, another question. I thought Andy said that the proposed garage is attached to the house. It doesn't look
it's detached.
Detached, okay.
Ed or Tim, any comments, or we'll move along to the planning department?
I would only comment that in the TAM, Tyler makes the point that this property was purchased in 2018. And at that time, it should have been clearly obvious to the new owner the restrictions and the sensitive nature of this plot. So when they were moving forward with this design, they were fully aware of what they were facing in terms of coming in front of the board. I think that's something it's something I'm going to consider when deciding whether or not we care to approve this application. I think there's not one that's been in continued ownership. It's not something that's gone on for a while. This is a new purchase, and as such, none of this is a surprise to the applicant.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the planning department. We can always come back and ask questions. Tyler, if you, good evening, Tyler.
Good evening. How are you, board?
Well, I'll swear you in, Tyler.
Sure.
If you please, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, go ahead and thank you for your work on this, Tyler.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So this parcel is located on the western end of private road, which is along the south side of Nappy Harbor and Amagansett. The application is in order to construct second-story additions on the landward side of the existing residence, with decking on the seaward side and landward side, a detached garage, new driveway, and an upgraded sanitary system. The parcel is located in an area of extreme environmental sensitivity and uniqueness. The premises are located along a narrow, sandy strip of upland bound to the north by Nappy Harbor and to the south by extensive tidal, brackish, and fresh marshes, along with shallow ponds. Approximately 9 properties gain access from a private dirt road located along the west side of Nappy Harbor. Nappy Harbor is New York State's significant fish and coastal wildlife habitat and is part of the Mcconnell Estuary Critical Environmental Area. Nappy Harbor is among the cleanest and most productive narrow-mouthed embayments of Long Island and has the highest water quality rating for surface waters. It is used extensively for a wide variety of commercial and recreational purposes, and presently no portion of the harbor is seasonally or permanently closed to shellfishing. The Nappy area can generally be characterized by duneland soils and beach vegetation interspersed with freshwater, tidal, and brackish wetlands in the lower elevations throughout the region. This complex of habitats located within state parkland and other conserved open space has resulted in one of the highest concentrations of rare plants and animals in the entire town of Easthampton. The state of New York, Suffolk County, and the town of Easthampton have preserved more than 4,000 acres of open space around the harbor at Nappy State Park, Hither Island, Hicks Island, Hither Hills, Lazy Point, Hither Woods, and the Coupleman Preserve. The parcels in this area have significant enough value to the town that the subject property is surrounded to the west and south by town-owned nature preserves, which the town has purchased through the Community Preservation Fund and open space bonds. The minimum encroachment on the wetlands and the watershed, the harbor unquestionably contributes to the high water quality of this harbor. The tidal wetlands on and adjoining the subject premises can be expected to provide all the benefits typically associated with pristine tidal wetlands and surface waters, as articulated within 255-415 of the town code. A brief summary of these benefits include the provision of high-quality habitat for a wide variety of flora and fauna, nurseries areas for fin and shellfish, the attenuation of floodwaters, a buffer from coastal erosion, the removal of pollutants and nutrients prior to surface water recharge, research, and educational opportunities, as well as aesthetic values. The proposed improvements exceed the constraints of the parcel, and this application fails to comply with the variance and natural resource special permit standards articulated in 255-850 and 255-551, respectively, of the town code. The proposed project represents a significant change in the character of the neighborhood and demonstrates poor coastal planning and resiliency. The private road area is generally characterized by small residential developments with limited accessory structures and clearing. The project as a whole should be scaled back to reduce coverage and clearing in order to better meet the variance and NRSP standards. As proposed, even with the removal of the previously proposed swimming pool and associated structures, the lot and building coverage would double from the existing 1,116 to a proposed 2,287 square feet. And total lot coverage would increase significantly from 4,183 square feet to 6,237 square feet. The subject parcel was improved prior to modern environmental regulation and currently does not meet FEMA first floor elevations. The existing first floor is situated at 8.4 feet, where current FEMA regulations would require it to be 13 feet above sea level. Additional improvements should be kept to a minimum unless a complete redevelopment of the property is planned with a new residence and a more conforming location which meets current FEMA regulations. Continuing to improve on an existing non-conforming residence, expanding their footprint, and constructing additional accessory structures within this sensitive area is counter to proper coastal consistency and planning. This area is one of the lowest lying developed areas within the town, which is forecast to be impacted by both sea level rise as well as increased storm intensity and frequency in the coming decades. Similar to the entire area in general, the parcel is within the slosh zones 1 and 2. The small area where the house is located is within the category 2 zone. Slosh, or sea, lake, and overland surges from hurricanes, is a model developed by the National Weather Service to estimate storm surge heights resulting from historical, hypothetical, or predicted hurricanes. The area can be expected to be inundated with water during and after any hurricane, making the area especially vulnerable to storm damage. Significant and continued expansion of non-conforming structures, both the wetland setbacks and FEMA regulations, and increased development within these vulnerable properties is counter to coastal consistency goals and purposes. Doubling the lot or building coverage and significantly increasing the total lot coverage is more than what is appropriate for the constraints of the property. Extensive clearing is also required as part of the project, which should be reduced to limit impacts on the extensive dune vegetation in order to retain as much of the natural landscape as possible. An additional 8,394 square feet of the property will be cleared for construction of the proposed project, nearly reaching the maximum allowable temporarily, with a revegetation after construction in order to reduce that clearing down to 9,369 square feet. The project should be scaled back to reduce the levels of required disturbance in order to limit the need for revegetation after the project is complete. The best method to retain dune land species and characteristics is to limit the level of disturbance and clearing in the first place. The Planning Department recommends denial of the proposed application. The Planning Department recommends a reduction in the sprawl and scale of the project and possibly a complete redevelopment with relocation of the residents and increased compliance with setbacks and FEMA regulations, considering the size of the additions that are proposed. The project represents an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood and would have adverse impacts on the surrounding environment and the neighborhood at large. Doubling or nearly doubling the lot and total lot coverage is significantly expanding on a FEMA non-conforming residence and the addition of a detached garage, which set poor precedences for this vulnerable area. The project does not represent the orderly growth and development of the parcel or the neighborhood and is counter to sustainable long-term planning for the southern end of Nappy Harbor area in general. Other than that, I can answer any questions you might have. Excuse me.
Okay, thank you, Tyler. Board members, any questions?
I'd like to ask Tyler. Tyler, there's on the submitted survey, there's a proposed revegetation area. Has a reveg plan been submitted to the planning department? So you know what they're proposing?
No revegetation plan, but certainly that could be something that would be worked out if approved. I wouldn't foresee any issues with that. It should be fairly easy to revegetate this area.
Well, I mentioned that because there's a significant, you saw it in the chairman's photos, there's some significant vegetation will be removed by the garage and in that area for the new construction. There's some fairly large pines. And so we'd want to see that whatever went back, if this project was approved, that the revegetation was reflective of what was there before. It would be of concern that we follow through on that today.
Yeah. Okay, any other comments, board members, or we'll go to the public? Mike, do we have anyone, LTV, do we have anyone there in the waiting room?
No, Chair, there is nobody on the phone other than Ms. McCall.
Okay. Okay, then. Andy, a final statement? Andy there?
Yep, I'm here. I'm sorry, I was muted. Yeah. I'm frankly a little bit shocked that the planning department has taken such a hard approach on this project, which I think is entirely reasonable. They're suggesting that it would be better to demolish an existing residence that's a lovely residence rather than construct 523 square feet of additions to the property. and a garage. Basically there are detached garages. The Dana Tang property had a detached garage as part of the property as well. So I just don't think that's compelling at all. I also fail to see that this is sprawl. What the largest sprawl item on this property is trying to accommodate an upgraded sanitary system. I have absolutely no problem getting you the scope of construction work and demonstrating to you that we will comply with FEMA. That was the whole reason we went this route, is because the clients love the house. Granted, it's non-conforming with respect to FEMA, but it isn't that non-conforming with respect to the town code. Look, a 41 foot is the front of the deck. The house complies with the bluff crest setback, and usually that's your biggest indication of what nonconformity, and coastal resiliency is. This house is darn near compliant.
There's no below grade basement under here, so it's a slab on grade. So
the slab on grade, essentially. I also would say that it's sort of disingenuous when you look at the approval that this board issued for the Bistrian property right across the street. When you look at their total coverage numbers, which was approved by the board at 4696, their clearing numbers at 4696.
But the final clearing of 10.
The final clearing was 10,000.
No, the final clearing is 10,000. The proposed clearing is 10,291. The final clearing was the exact same as the lot total coverage, 4696, and the needed substantial variances, which this project only needs minor variances. Furthermore, this property is twice as large as the Bistrian property. So if you did it in percentage wise, our percentages are less than what was probably approved on the Bistrian property. Unfortunately, I could figure it out, but the survey approved for the Bistrian property doesn't show the percentages. I could easily.
Well, you could always add, Joel, you can always, the written records can be open for quite a while. You can always add to your file.
I think that's good. We thought this was, and in terms of an addition, 528 square feet is de minimis. That pretty much taps out this building. And Tyler said continual additions to the building. This is the first and final addition to this building that can be accommodated under FEMA, our town code. And it was done in that manner because these owners love this house and just want to inhabit it and want a little bit more second floor living space that's going to be built FEMA compliant.
I just don't think it's just about the addition, Andrew. I think it all has to do with the increased coverage and all that stuff and the intensity on this property relative to what's been allowed in this neighborhood.
Yeah, well, look at the Bistrian property across the street. We're twice the size, and we have less percentage of coverage, everything going forward. And I will demonstrate.
Isn't the Bistrian property? Isn't that property FEMA compliant?
Yes,
it is. Yes, it is. Yeah, good point, Tim.
Substantial wetland variances from.
Okay,
but you're bringing it up, so it's absolutely FEMA compliant.
We never said it wasn't FEMA compliant.
Okay, all right, fine. Joel, I'm going to jump in here. We've given you and Andy plenty of time on this hearing as well. And we're kind of circling back over. I think we've had enough time on this, to be honest with you. Board members, unless you have any final comments, do you have any? I'm going to go ahead and close this out here.
Can I just address something very briefly about the Bistrian property?
Yes, you may, Tyler.
Sure, thank you. If I didn't handle the Bistrian application, but if I remember correctly, the planning department had significant reservations, and we may have even recommended denial of that application as well. So certainly we're being consistent. And there were also extenuating circumstances as to why the board granted that, having to do with donation of property that the Bistrians had done in this area and things like that.
Yes.
So trying to compare them, I think is difficult. And the planning department certainly had very significant reservations at the very least. With that applications, if not requesting outright denial.
Yes.
So just to point that out.
Yeah, thank you, Tyler. But again, Andy and Joel, you're certainly welcome to submit anything else you want to the written record. Okay.
I do think that those applications that are approved by the board are the character of the neighborhood. And if you're going to hold us to that standard, you're the one setting it. And that was a very relevant, close proximity character of the neighborhood that this board approved. So,
well, you can put that in a memo, but we're not going to give you any more time. We're not going to go over this, rehash and compare these two anymore. that's not before us tonight either. You can do what you know, submit to us what you will, and we'll certainly read it. And
I
consider
do
it.
want to say, I think the Bistrian was a great application. It looks like they're doing a fantastic job. There's nothing about that application that I meant to, I'm just saying that it was, it's relevant for your consideration.
Yeah, we understand. Thank you. Okay, thank you all for this, and thank you, Tyler, for your work on this. With regard to Laura McCall at 52 Private Road, Namagansett, tax map number 300-109-1-8, I would like to make a motion to close the public hearing and leave the written record open until 2 weeks after the time that the transcript is posted on the town's website.
Second.
I concur.
I concur.
And I concur.
Okay, thank you all. Thanks, Andy and Joel. Tyler, have a good evening. Okay, board members. Next, we have the minutes, the draft minutes of March 23rd, 2021. I've read these and they looked fine to me. Do we have a motion to second? I'll make a motion to, I'm sorry, go ahead. If someone would make a motion to approve those, please.
Oh, okay. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of March 23rd it was?
Yep.
March 23rd of the Easthampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals.
I'll second.
I
concur.
Okay, thanks you all. Okay, next we'll go on. We have an extension of time. I believe I have that in front of me. I apologize. Kyle or Tyler, one of you guys have that, or can somebody pull that up?
I'm good.
I can start reading it into the record. If somebody, one of you all can pull that up, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I have it in my email.
Okay, I'll just read this in and then Terry, you can take over. So this says an extension of time with regard to Joseph and Courtney DeSena at 137 South Edgemore Street, Montauk, tax map number 300-28-4-2. And board member Berger, you take it from here, please.
Yeah, if you recall, this was an extension of time request, and there were a few items and part of the determination that needed to be addressed prior to the planning department recommending the extension. So those items soon were done. In the matter of the application of Joseph and Courtney DeSena, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-028-04-02 at 137 South Edgemore Street in Montauk, I make a motion to approve the extension of time.
I'll second that motion.
I concur.
I concur.
And I concur as well. Okay, thank you, Terry. Let's see, board members, council, we okay to close out on your end? Anything on your end, Jameson?
I don't have anything extra.
Oh, okay, thank you. And thank you again for being with us. We appreciate it. And nice to see you. Okay, Vice Chair, I think we need a motion from you if there's no other business.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to close the public hearing of the Town of Easthampton Zoning Board of Appeals for Tuesday, April 6th at 8:22 p.m.
Second.
Concur.
I'll concur.
And I concur. Thank you, Roy. Thank you all. Thank you all.
See you all.
Have a good evening.
Hi, everyone.